Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the webinar on Candy Indirects. My name is Peter Phillips. I'm a Senior Technical Consultant here at the CCS office in Cape Town, a city in the Cape Province of South Africa. It is my pleasure to present this webinar to you. Today, I will be showing you how to use Candy's Indirects functionality. We will commence with the basics in order to ensure that everyone is of a fairly similar level of understanding as we go through to some of the more advanced functionality. Due to the large number of people logged into this webinar, we will not be able to answer any questions during the webinar. However, please submit your questions during the session with the provided function on the screen. At the end of the webinar, we will collate these questions and send the answers to everybody that registered for this webinar via email. Please note that the webinar will be recorded and you will receive a link to download it. There is a webinar once a month on various Candy topics. Should you not be able to attend the webinar at the given time frame, then please still register for the webinar, as this will entitle you to receive a recorded copy of the webinar. Let's get started. Indirects. Indirect costs are costs not directly included in bill items. These are non-productive costs or preliminary costs required in the project, i.e. supervision, plant, site services, etc. The indirect bill is a separate schedule of items which are predominantly time-related, but can also be value or fixed-based items. As the value of these items are not determined by a measured quantity, they need to be managed differently from direct bill items. To establish the total value of indirect costs required for a project, it is necessary to draw up a schedule of these items. These could be summarized but not limited to the following headings: supervision, hoardings and setting out, office accommodation, major plant, minor plant, scaffolding, transport, site services, safety and signage, insurance, and surety. Each item included in the indirect cost schedule has a price code and worksheet, the same as a direct bill item. The benefits of using the indirect cost module are compilation of an accurate tender for non-productive or preliminary and general costs, an initial budget forecast to completion, and true values each month based upon the based indirects and monthly transactions, as well as an accurate forecast of cost to completion of the project. This last advantage will be discussed later at a later webinar. In order to work with indirect costs, the user should have a good knowledge of Candy estimating, as we will refer to price codes, trade codes, resource types, worksheets, task codes, and cost codes. The user working with the bar chart must have a workable knowledge of Candy planning, as we will be referring to creating the customizing views, creating activities and level headings, moving activities and adjusting activity durations, linking activities, creating and linking tied activities, and creating and customizing reports. We will be covering the following: setting up Candy estimating for indirects, the 3 methods to record indirects, and applying indirects to the bid by spreading indirects over the bill items. Setting up estimating for indirects. Each indirect item has a price code with a worksheet and may have project codes if required. Plugged and split rates are not recommended, as they will prevent the store of base forecast and will not be included in the analysis of the indirect cost forecast, etc. This screenshot is of a typical master price code listing of indirects with a fully priced worksheet. Notice that the units of time-related price codes are month, week, and day. look at price code A0201, site hoardings. This is measured in meters, which is a non-time related unit. I will now show you how to access indirects. You can select the indirects in the estimating application menu and then select indirects. To commence using indirects, we first select Indirect Cost Documents. This will open the Indirect Cost Document Manager. The default documents displayed on the Document Manager are the most commonly used documents, but all of these can be customized. In the Document Manager, we're going to select Indirect Cost 1.2.1 Start and End Months. If this is a new indirects job, a selection of one of the choices must be made. Option 1 will copy the indirects bill from the master but clear all quantities. Option 2 will do the same but retain the quantities. Option 3 will create a new bill from scratch. Option 4 will create a new bill from scratch but copy the start date from a planning program. For this example, we are going to select Create a New Bill. Basic program information will be required as follows. We now change the start date, week start day, and working days per week as required. This job will be the 1st of June 2016. Our start day is typically a Monday. In some regions it will be a Sunday. Work days per week, we're going to leave it at 5 days per week, but you can have 6 or 7 days depending on your program. The Indirects Cost Program Calendar should be set up by going to the Indirect Cost Document Manager 1.3.2 Program Calendar. This document works in the same way as Candy Planning. Enter holidays and non-working days by use of the tabs at the bottom of the document. Before adding any price codes, ensure that the time-relating price code units relate to the unit table in Indirects. Click on the Menus tool and then select the unit table from the menu. The default time unit definition will be displayed. Should any of the time units used against the price codes differ from the default time unit names in the definitions, i.e. the price code unit reads WKS instead of WEK or months instead of month, it could be added or the existing unit name be edited. To add a new time unit, select the New button and in the dialog box that opens, type in the same unit as used in the price codes. We're going to enter WKS. An existing unit can also be edited as required by using the Edit button, which I've just done. The description of the way the calculation is calculated indicates how the value of time-related activity is derived. The calculation rules of these descriptions, if you can choose month and ignore the holidays, this will typically use the month rate for whole months, and for part of the month use the working days of that activity divided by the working days in the month times the rate. For example, an engineer who earns 50,000 Rand for a whole month will obviously be 50,000 Rand, but a part month or using 15 working days in the month will be 50,000 Rand times 15 over 22 was 34,091. So the total amount for 10 months and 15 working days would be 10 times 50,000 plus the 34,091. It was 534,091. A week using 5 working days will use the rate, divide by 5, and times the working days of that activity in the month. For example, a mixer at 3,100 per week, we divide by 5 to get the daily rate and times the time in working days. So therefore, the amount is 3,100 divided by 5, and the program was 110 working days. The total will be 68,200. And then finally, an hourly rate using 8-hour working day will use the rate times the 8 hours times the time in working days. Example, a timekeeper earning 35 per hour times 8 hours times time in working days. The amount would be 35 times 8 times 220 working days for the duration of his contract times 61,600. The unit names are spelling and case sensitive, so make sure that the spelling is the same as used in the price code list. It is important to note that any price code unit that is not in the unit table will be treated as a non-time related unit, the amount of which will be spread over time, but the total amount of the price code will not change over time. Indirect items can be created by typing in a price code, calling up the master price code list by Shift-P and dragging and dropping the price codes required onto the new Indirects bill, calling up the master code listing by Shift-P, selecting a range of price codes and dragging and dropping them onto the new Indirects bill. For this example, we are going to set the Indirects document on the left-hand side, and then call the price code document, the master price code listing, on the right-hand side of the screen. Shift-P, open it up, we now select the price codes from the master and drag them to the document on the left-hand side. We now have a priced Indirects bill without any quantities. There are 3 methods of creating and recording indirects, in sequence of easy to difficult. Time input, start and end input, and bar chart input. It is important to note that once a method has been selected, you cannot change to another one. Time input is the simplest way to record indirects. The allowable is determined simply by the price code rate times the utilization times the factor times the quantity. For this method, we use Indirects document 1.1.1 time input. Time input. So the number column, for instance, is the number or the quantity of the resource required. In this case, we want 1 contracts manager, the factor is used to factorize the number. In this example, our contracts manager is running four jobs, so we will have a factor there of 0.25. The price code time is the time in units required for the activity. Example, the contracts manager will be on site for 10 months. There you have a quick compilation of the allowable for the contracts manager. For instance, the engineer would be on site for 4 months. And the hoarding is a non-time related item. Simply we need the length of the hoarding required. Once all the required price codes and price code times have been entered, the final total can be displayed. To save time, I'm going to switch to a job which is already complete. Indirects, price code, time input. This method is used to obtain a quick estimate. It is not the recommended method, as all price codes will commence on day 1 and thus will not give you an accurate monthly forecast. Take the engineer in this case, he's on for 7 months, but that doesn't identify what 7 months he's on, whether it be from 1 to 7 or from 3 to 10. So a forecast cannot be derived from this method. The second method is start and end input, which calculates time as the difference between the start month and the end month, and then establishes the value by multiplying time by the price code rate. This provides for and can display monthly forecasts, which enables post-contract indirect cost analysis to be used. We're going to open another job here. Indirects. I'm going to use 1.2.1. And you get the same screen, but again, because again we're starting from scratch, but in this example we're going to copy from the master and preserve the quantities. With the start and input method, the money value is spread over time to calculate the value for each cost period. We need to change the start date again. Financial periods, I'm going to change to the fixed date of the 25th. And there we have a blank document with quantities, and all you have to do there is obviously change the number and the factor as required. We take that contracts manager again, apply the 0.25 factor, and in this case he's going to start in month 1 and finish in month 10. The engineer, he will start at month 1 and finish in month 7. And the hoardings, we'll change that back to the 325 meters. And we're going to put a start and end date to the hoardings, just to ensure that we get a proper forecast. Now I'm going to, again, I will revert to a completed job. That is the completed start and input document. Now we are going to customize this document to show you the bar chart information which you created by putting in the start and end months. Go to View, Add and Remove Columns, and add the bar chart information. Notice that although we only entered the start and end months, a monthly bar chart has been created. The month columns are displayed on the right-hand side of the screen. Use the tabs to display the rest of the month columns not visible on the current screen, or use the arrows in the bottom left right-hand corner. Non-time related items, example, the site hoardings, the insurances, etc., are displayed as blue hatched bars, which means that adjusting the length and or position will only change the allocations or spread of the net amount value, but the total net amount will remain the same. Time-related items are displayed as red hatched bars. Adjusting the length and or position will change the allocation, spread, and the total net amount. We're now going to go to indirect document, 2.1. Sorry, I haven't put the changed the dates there. I'll show you that on another one. Sorry about that. By going to document 2.1 indirects, the monthly spread can be seen, and by going to document 2.2, resource analysis of the indirect items can be seen. We can also get a resource forecast by usage or amount by right-clicking and reconfiguring the forecast columns. It was on usage, we now change it to amounts. We recommend that non-planners use this method as it is easy to use and does not require site planning skills. The most advanced method is the bar chart method, which requires candy planning skills. Time required is calculated based on the link to a bar in the bar chart. This is a very accurate measure of time and money. This method allows the user to create a linked program and tie the price codes or activities to the summary program. For this method, Indirects document 1.3.1 is used. Bar chart information has been used to demonstrate How indirects can be linked to the indirects program. This method computes to an accurate forecast and also allows for post-contract indirect forecasting and cost to completion. There's a summarized program at the top of this, which would probably be extracted from the main program, and these activities are linked to that program. So by changing these bars, you will change the time allocation of the indirect item. The indirect program uses the same functionality as Candy Planning. At the top of the document, we have the summarized program based on the main contract program and the indirect bill below, which is time-linked to the summary program. Non-time related items, example the site hoardings, setting out, etc., are displayed as blue striped bars. Adjusting the length and or position will only change the allocation spread of the net amount value, but the total net amount will remain the same. In the same way as we did in the start and end input, and in the start and input there we hatch bars because they're not linked. Time-related items are displayed as red striped bars. Adjusting the length and or position will change the allocation, the spread, and the total net amount. Now we have established the value of indirects, we are able to obtain a monthly forecast of indirect items and a trade total for indirects, directs, and the complete job. Going to trade summary, we get the direct costs bill only. We can get the indirect costs only, and we can get the combined. Applying indirects to the tender. If you require the indirect costs to be included in bill items, they can be spread over bill items in a controlled manner. What has to be spread and where is set up by the user early in the bid process. At finalization, the spread can be done at the last minute with confidence. The indirect spread amount is recorded against the bill items. This amount is divided by the bill quantity to calculate a spread rate. The spread rate is added to the bill item's gross rate and stored as its selling rate. You can elect to calculate the spread rate using the final quantity if required. There are a variety of ways to organize spreading and limit or prevent certain bill items receiving spread from the indirects. Indirect spreading is controlled through named procedures. We're going to use indirects document 3.1, spreading procedures definitions. Named procedures are created to spread groups of indirect costs over groups of bill items. We're going to create 3 procedures: representative, plant, and insurances. Notice that the default percentage is 100%, but you can have procedures allocating a lesser percentage to one procedure and the balance to another procedure. Each procedure has a list of indirect items assigned to it and the percentage of their value to be spread. Now we need to put the indirect bill on the screen. Put this over to the left-hand side of the screen. right-hand side of the screen. The procedure, and now we need to allocate these items to the procedure. So we're going to take the supervision items and drag them onto the correct procedure. Supervision goes to representative. We're going to put the balance to plant, and just leaving the insurances to go to insurances. The procedure must also have a list of bill items over which to spread the amount. So we put the bill onto the screen, put that over to the right-hand side, and we now link the representative to the correct procedure. The procedures have no effect until the indirect spreading calculation is invoked by the user. So from the same document, we spread the indirects. Let's first have a look at the bill with no selling rate there. We now go down to the bottom right of the screen, spread the indirects. We're going to use bill quantity. We go back to the bill. You see that the spread has been invoked, and those bill items have received their selling rate. Notice that if we go to the worksheet, there is no worksheet, just a selling rate. If the markup needs to be changed after respreading, we first change the markup by going to Finalization, Markup, Trade Markup, and we can change the markup at Finalization. Go back to this document and spread the indirects again. We go back to the document. Revised figures have now been spread. You can do this as many times as you require. Post-contract indirects is a separate seminar. This brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you for your time, and I trust that you now have a greater insight into Candy Indirects. Please remember to email your local CCS office if you want to know more about the indirects. We will keep you informed of the next webinar, and remember, if you are unable to join on any selected time, then please still register and you will receive the recording, which you can then watch in your own time. Enjoy the rest of your day till the next webinar. Goodbye for now.